the man with an opinion on all things sports. This is The Meltdown with Vince Thompson.
Welcome back to this week's Meltdown. We've got a special one for you as we cover an update on legalized wagering that is sweeping the nation. I'm Vince Thompson, chairman, founder, CEO of Melt, and you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Vinny Inc. Hit me up. Great cards and letters coming in, comments. We appreciate all the responses, particularly last week as we talked about Coach Saban. Is he the $6 billion man? This week we're going to cover wagering, and over the next few weeks we're going to do a series of special reports on hot topics and hot takes in the world of college sports business and sports business. On our 25th episode, we're going to discuss legal wagering. You may or may not know about this. You may or may not participate in it. You may or may not have a local bookie. But we're going to talk about that. Who are the major players today? BetMGM, Caesars, FanDuel, DraftKings, and Penn National's monster investment in Dave Portnoy's Barstool Sports. But you're going to see this be a major driver of viewership, fan engagement, and with state budgets under tremendous amounts of pressure due to COVID, these are tax dollars that are being left on the table for many, many governments to capture. So we're going to talk about the movement among state legislatures in a minute. Where are we now? Look at how many states that have already adopted this. Look at how many states are pending in 21, 22, and 23. In our home state of Georgia, new bill in the hopper for online wagering, just a tap of the button. And obviously the South and the Northeast corridor drive a lot of sports wagering. We'll talk about Vegas in just a moment, but with the South, you've got the SEC football, you've got an affinity for pro football, and obviously up in the Northeast corridor as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about how this is going to drive the value of the next rights fees within the NFL, NBA, and college football in the SEC, because it is now less about loyalty to teams, to an extent, but loyalty to the bets that you're placing within the game, the wager, the props, or fantasy as well. But this is a new hot topic and emerging. In the history of legal wagering in the U.S., horse betting was the origin, then baseball, then obviously the great Black Sox scandal of 1919 set the cause back, and then lack of legislation, and obviously nature abhors a vacuum. And when Nevada legalized gambling in 1931, the crime families from New York migrated from New York to Vegas, and this was sort of where the epicenter of this started occurring, which led to the Interstate Wire Act of 1961 and forced Nevada to be the true Sin City and the only legitimate place to bet in the U.S. Now, what changed that? Before we get into the Supreme Court decision of 2018, we know that the Super Bowl is the largest one-day wagering occurrence in the planet. Almost $7 billion bet in 2020. And I anticipate with legal wagering now in place in many, many states, that number will go well north of $7 billion. Survey from DraftKings, as we mentioned, 82% of NFL fans wagered on the big games. And even the growth and evolution of a 30-second spot, which, by the way, is not sold out yet, $5.5 million per 30 seconds. So we know there's going to be massive viewer engagement, massive fan engagement. And in 2019 March Madness, 50 million Americans wagered $8.5 billion. Obviously, we didn't have that opportunity to do that in 2020. Hopefully, we'll have it in 21 in the state of Indiana and in the city of Indianapolis. And if you've ever been to Vegas on that first weekend of March Madness, pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID, it's electric. You're in there for 4 days. There are people everywhere. The sports books are just crazy. People doing their office pools and their bets and, you know, the brackets and Warren Buffett's $1 billion bracket and all these kind of crazy things. And believe it or not, the eyeballs and the number of money bet within the 3 weeks of March Madness does nearly equal the Super Bowl. And with the acceleration of legal wagering, you're going to see more and more and more of that. So we'll see what the response is to bubble betting for the March Madness this year. We did not see a diminishment in handles for college football or pro football, and particularly you had more time at your home to consume the product and do the research on the product as well, and have more access to the product. The big bang was in May of 2018. Supreme Court overturned the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act of 1992, and this opened the door. In May of 18, New Jersey slammed through that door, and look at this number. Nearly $5 billion wagered in 19. We haven't seen the numbers for 2020 yet. More than $35 million going right to the bottom line of the coffers. Now 20 states have it. Governor Cuomo said he wants to adapt it because all of those New Yorkers are crossing the line in New Jersey. And with the BetMGM app, it captures you where you are geographically, allows you to legally make that bet in New Jersey and go back across the state line in New York, watch your contest, watch your event, watch your game, and then go back across the line to collect the wager. It's that simple. So Cuomo, in his wisdom, is like, well, hey, let's capture it's free money. Same with Governor Kemp in Georgia. You know, now that Tennessee has legalized it, you literally can drive up to the line in Ringgold, Georgia, and Chattanooga, make your bet, and come home, watch the game. So I suspect particularly this is accelerated by the state budget's weaknesses due to COVID and the shortfall of revenues. And a lot of the legislatures also in the past were trying to get this passed with casino gambling and also horse racing. And now they're just going to focus on in the palm of the hand. Who are these major players? We've talked about it. BetMGM, they're huge. They've got this amazing technology. I know them well. Caesars, DraftKings, FanDuel, Penn National, and then you're seeing this linkage with major media properties. And we'll call it out here today. Bally's made an $85 million investment in Sinclair Broadcasting with all of these 29 regional sports networks, and they're going to be renamed Bally's Networks. And you're going to see those sports contests, whether it's the Hawks or the Braves, you're going to be able to bet them where it's legal real time. So you're going to continue to see an alignment of the wagering establishments with media establishments. You see Bleacher was acquired by Turner. We've got Will Funk coming up on there. That's going to be another destination as well. So you can tie the content, you can tie the viewership, you can tie the engagement, you can tie the fantasy, you can tie the mobilization on the phone, and you can tie the viewership, and you can tie the bets in all together. I've tried it a couple of times, and it's actually fun. Now, the interesting thing is you go away from the loyalty to the team to the loyalty to the bet or the fantasy during the engagement. But it does make it fun. It makes it more esprit de corps, companion viewing, and being able to watch it with your friends, even if you're there in real time or not. And so I do think you'll continue to see a massive increase in rights fees. I know the NFL is trying to squire in on hundreds of billions of dollars with Goodell. Adam Silver with the NBA. I see where Adam Silver is going to even expand the franchise footprints to sort of follow where these states are going to allow this gambling as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how it impacts college sports. A lot of transition going on with college sports, NIL, player empowerment. blowback on coaches' buyouts and salaries. I've been very critical of that with Gus and the $21 million at Auburn and all that. Is there going to be other scandals on fixing games and all those types of things? So this legal wagering is a fascinating issue and challenge, but the horse is out of the barn. The Supreme Court let that horse out of the barn in May of 18, and no turning back. And you're continuing to see team deals. University of Colorado did one. The Broncos did one with BetMGM. You can even place bets at the Washington Capitals and Washington Wizards arena during those games. Sports books will populate. The four pro sports teams in Atlanta are all lobbying behind this as well, because they do believe it'll lead to long-term continued fan engagement, whether it's in the venue or whether it's on the mobile device or whether it's on the television. So worth $85 billion in 2019, well north of $100 billion in 2020, probably well north of $200 billion in 2023, 2024. Those numbers are with a B, by the way. Over $20 billion has been bet in U.S. sports books since May of 18. So you look at these revenues, and let me stress this, they may or may not seem a lot, which they are. If you look at Nevada, $745 million, New Jersey, almost $800 million, Mississippi, $100 million. My dear friend Danny Sheridan made the first bet at the Beau Rivage, an MGM property, a couple of years ago, the ceremonial first bet. Pennsylvania, $400 million. Whether it's big money or not, it's new money. It's found money to the bottom line. And whether you have a moral disagreement with it or not, people who bet on sports are going to find a way to bet on sports. So the legalization of the vice or the hobby, particularly in Georgia, if you look at it, they're going to try to make those proceeds go back to the Georgia Lottery and the Hope Scholarship and those types of things. So if they can tie it into some really, really positive outcomes for children's educations, teacher salaries, and all that, I'm all for it. Michigan starts this Friday, although my dear friend David Cohn and our guest today, Grace, probably won't be betting on the Wolverines anytime soon. I had to get that little slug in there. Lots of states pending. We've talked about Georgia. We've talked about Louisiana. I'm shocked we don't even have it there yet. Maryland, obviously, because District of Columbia has it. South Dakota, North Carolina approved, waiting for the first bet. That'll probably propel NASCAR to another group of heights. It'd be fun to kind of bet on NASCAR as well. Virginia and Washington states, you'll see these numbers grow quickly. Will there be a federal regulation of it? At some point, Uncle Sam is probably going to get his hands in the kitty. But we'll see how that works, because this is a little bit of a more highly regulated by the states. You see how they regulate the lotteries. They have multi-state with Powerball and Mega Millions, which, by the way, is about $1 billion. So if I hit the $1 billion this weekend, this probably will be my last meltdown, unless I'm filming it from Caribbean Island with my dear friend Dave Hammock. No, wait, scratch that. So no, we'll scratch the hammock, don't scratch the island. There are potential issues, moral, legal. You know, the well-documented NBA ref, Tim Donaghy, the Black Sox scandal 100 years ago. But, you know, I think that that should weed itself out. And also I think you're going to see, as part of this, is the fanalytics, the data analytics, the in-game prop betting. It's just going to be fascinating to kind of see where technology drives this. But don't kid yourself. As the Baylor coach said it very succinctly this week about the NCAA play in March Madness, it's all about the mighty dollar. So it's sweeping. In conclusion, I'm for it. As long as it doesn't get out of hand from the betting perspective, doesn't shatter lives, goes to help a worthy cause, drive viewership, drive engagement, drive fun, drive camaraderie. You know, every once in a while, my son and I'll do a little bit of it, very minor, but it gives us some really, really fun things to sort of talk about and engage together and watch the games together. So we got a lot going down on the pike. We're going to talk more about it in the future. NIL coming down the pike. A lot of big announcements coming in on that. A lot of big announcements coming in on the future rights fees. But don't think that this is not all being driven by the dollar, and it's going to be fascinating to see where the broadcast dollar. And it's interesting that, I think fans are going to come back to these games and stadiums, but watching the product, although it's kind of weird not having fans in the stands, and I think the fans will come back, but the quality of the broadcast of the product, I mean, think about the fact that a Herb Street or a Romo can broadcast a sporting event from their home. So goodness knows where all this is going to go, and it's going to be fascinating to see where it goes in the college with the NIL. So can a Trevor be sponsored by DraftKings if he's over 21, if it's a game? Like there's so many fascinating issues that we're going to come talk about more and more in 2021 at the Meltdown. Don't forget the new book, Bill Brand New. It's on fire. It's climbing the charts. Amazon.com. We're hearing from a lot of you who gave it for great Christmas presents and stocking stuffers. We're going to be teaching a lot of Zoom classes, fortunately or unfortunately, this spring, hopefully as the continued loosening up of on-campus as well. But Bill Brand New is doing really, really well. So thank you. Fascinating discussion this week for your engagement. I'm Vince Thompson, founder, chairman, CEO of Melt, and that's it for this week's Meltdown.
You've just listened to The Meltdown. Remember to follow us on Twitter and Instagram @MeltATL and follow Vince @VinnyInc and on LinkedIn as Vince Thompson.